Hi, in this lab we will see how to create NAT Gateway. So in order to create NAT Gateway, first we need to have some prerequisites. So if I go to my subnet, you can see there are two subnets over here in this particular VPC, which is 10.125.1.0 and 2.0. So here, if I take the first prod VDI subnet and if I go to the route table, I have an entry which is saying that all the internet traffic should go to my internet gateway. So it means in this particular subnet, if I deploy any VM, it will have a both inbound and outbound connection to the internet because all the traffic will go to the internet gateway. So if I go to the second subnet, which is VDI management subnet, for example, and if I go to the route table, I don't have any route related to internet. So it means if I deploy any VM in this particular subnet, it doesn't have any inbound and outbound connectivity to the internet. It can only communicate within this address space. It means it can communicate between 10.125.0.0/16, meaning within these two subnets it can communicate because of the default route. So let's deploy one VM from this particular in this particular subnet. So I'm going to the EC2 blade. I will click on launch instance. I'm going to name it as NAT demo VM, and then I will select the image which is Windows. So I'll keep it as server 22 base itself, and SKU I'm going to choose T2 medium, and key pair which I'm going to choose, I'll choose a demo AWS. And under networking, this is very important. I'll go to the edit and I will choose the VPC which is 10.125.0.0. As you can see, I have two VPCs. So I'll choose 10.125.0.0. So under that, there are two subnets as I mentioned. One is VDI management and one is prod. Prod is a public subnet. It means it is having a visibility to internet. So now we need to deploy on this particular subnet which doesn't have any visibility to the internet. So I'm selecting this particular subnet. So when it comes to auto assign public IP address, so this is very important. You should not assign any public IP address to the instance which is deployed in the private segment. So I'll keep disable. So security group. So I'm going to keep the default one. So this is the default security group. So then I'll keep the storage as it is and I'll click on launch instance. So now it will create a virtual machine. However, this virtual machine won't be accessible from the internet. So we have a workaround how we can access this particular virtual machine. So we have one VM which is in public segment, which is this particular demo VM. So we will try to access this. From this, we can do IDP to the internal IP address of NAT demo VM and we can access this. So how it technically looks. So if I go to my whiteboard, so I have my VPC here. So this is my VPC and I have two subnet. This is private and this is public. So what I did, I deployed a virtual machine here now. So I already have a virtual machine in my public. So this will have a connectivity to the internet because this is associated with internet gateway. So now we cannot take this remote from the internet. So what we are going to do is, this is my client PC, my laptop. So I'm going to take a remote of this machine. So from this machine I can able to access the other one using the internal IP. This is because how I can able to access between these two. This because of the route entry which is by default saying that anything which is in the CADR 10.0.0.0 or 10.125.0.0 should be allowed. So if I go to my route table, so this is my route table. See, we have entry which is saying that 10.125.0.0/20. This is target is local, it should be allowed. So using this route table, it able to access between the subnet. So let's go back to the EC2 and we'll see what is the behavior of a virtual machine. So now I have logged into the virtual machine which is in the public segment. So if I go to my VPC or if I go to my instance, so this is the VM which I logged in. So this is the public IP address. So you can see over here. So demo-VM. So inside this, I'm going to access the VM which is deployed in the private subnet. So if I go to NAT demo-VM, so if I go to the networking, I can see the private IP address. So here you don't see any public IP address. So because we did not assign any public IP address, see you can see there is no public IP address associated with this particular VM. So I already logged into the public one. So from here I'm going to connect to 10.125.2.21, which is our VM in a private segment. So I'm going to connect to this. So I will add the administrator credential and this is the password. So I'll just copy the password and I will log into the VM. So if you have a trouble in logging into the VM through RDP, so you need to make sure your security groups and if you go to the security groups, so you make sure that you have the rule, to allow the RDP traffic. Okay. So this particular 3389 you should allow for this particular subnet or CIDR. This is our CIDR of our VPC. So if you do not have this, then it may block the RDP connection. So make sure your security group is already whitelisted with the ports. So now I have logged into the VM. So this is my private VM. If I go to my browser and if I try to access Google, as you can see, it won't allow you to open the Google. For example, let's say here I'm going to enter https colon double slash www.google.com, and if I enter, so it will simply load, but it won't display the Google web page. This is because this particular virtual machine doesn't have any connectivity to the internet, so it will ultimately time out, as also you can see. So cannot reach the page. So now if you wanted to allow outbound connection to the internet from this VM, then we need something called NAT gateway. So if I go to my whiteboard, what we have done is, so we have a VPC. So in this VPC, the address range is 10.125.0.0/16. So we have two segments. One is private and one is public. So this is 10.125.2.0/24 and the public one is 10.125.1.0/24. So we have a VM from internet. Let's say this is the internet. To internet I connected my laptop. So I did a RDP. From this VM I connected to my private VM. So this is what I have done. So now I wanted to establish internet connectivity which is outbound from this VM. So to do that we need to deploy something called NAT gateway in the public segment. So we need to create NAT gateway. So let's go and do NAT gateway in the public segment. So I'll go to the portal and I'll click on NAT gateway in the VPC blade. So I'll click on create NAT gateway. So give the name to the NAT gateway. I'm going to give demo hyphen NAT hyphen gateway subnet. So this is the public segment. So this is the public subnet you need to choose for your NAT gateway. So if you see, we have four subnets which belongs to two VPCs. So we need to carefully select the public segment which is belongs to our VPC. So if you look into this, so this is the public segment of our VPC. So I have selected this. Then connectivity type, keep it public. Elastic IP address. So select an IP address because this is the public IP address we are going to assign it to NAT gateway. So if you do not have it, you need to click on allocate IP address. So it will create IP address for you. So that's it. We just need to click on create NAT gateway. So it will take a while to create a NAT gateway. So as you can see, it is very quick. NAT gateway is completed successfully. So as you can say, status is pending. So let's wait for a while and we will see what is the behavior after some time. So it is still in pending state. So it will take a while to get it completed. So let's allow some time. So as you can see, now it is showing available. So if you see, you can see the public IP address of the NAT gateway as well. So this will use this particular public IP address to communicate to the internet. So now the thing is, we need to go to our whiteboard and we need to understand how we are associating the NAT gateway to our private segment to send the traffic. So to do that, as I told, every subnet will have a route table. So we need to add a route table saying that all the traffic which is related to internet should go to NAT gateway. So this is what we are going to do. So let's go to the route table of our private subnet. So as you can see, this is our private subnet. So if I go to the route table, so this is my route table. So let's click on this route table. So as of now in the route table, we do not have any route related to internet. So you can see it, only one route is there, which is related to the VPC or inter subnet communication. So let's go and edit the route and we will add a route saying that all the traffic which is internet related traffic should go to my network gateway or NAT gateway. So I am selecting the NAT gateway and I will click on save changes. So now what we have done, we associated this particular subnet to the route table. So now if I try to access google.com from here, first it will check the route table. So route table is saying that, okay, if it is related to internet, you pass that traffic to NAT gateway. So NAT gateway, what it will do, it will communicate with one more component called internet gateway. So through that, it will send it to the internet. So now let's see the association over here. So it is associated now. The route has been modified. So if we go to our VM and if we try to access Google again, it should work. So I have logged into the same virtual machine. So if I go to google.com from here, it should be able to work now. So let's go and try to access google.com. See, it is opening the Google page. If I go to what's my public IP address, so it should show the same NAT gateway public IP address. See, 34.226.34.78. This is the IP address it will take and it will use this to communicate to the internet. So if I go back to my NAT gateway appliance and if I see the IP address, this should be similar. So as you can see, 34.226.34.78. So here also it is the same. So what we have achieved is we have configured a NAT gateway to allow outbound traffic so that my VM can communicate to internet. But please keep it in mind, this is only for the outbound and it is not for the inbound. So you cannot communicate from internet to your VM using NAT gateway. To do that, you need to have a internet gateway, which I already covered in the earlier chapter. So this is the brief about NAT gateway. And NAT gateway, it is a chargeable appliance, so it will get built. However, for the internet gateway, which we discussed earlier, it is free of cost. So there is no charge for the internet gateway.